See that top stack of hives? Those are the ones that were down in my south apiary. And I brought those back at the end of summer. I believe it was August. And you see there's some open spaces there. Those are the colonies that have gotten smaller. Now those are all 2019 queens. And on the bottom are my new queens from 2020. And the upper ones, my 2019, I took honey away from them and I took bees away from them to increase the size of my 2020 colonies over there and over here. Now the two deeps are the larger ones. The actual clusters in both deeps. But when there's a single deep in the medium, there's smaller cluster. And I have to be careful to make sure they don't get too cold at night. Last night this morning was 20 degrees and these colonies outside were just fine. But I brought some in the other day and most of them are from that stack on top of the other hives. Now these are the ones here that were at my south apiary, and they've gotten a lot smaller since I brought them home. And this is my list of the reasons why you lose colonies during winter. Number 1 is virosis from Varroa mites. Number 2, chemicals in the pollen, honey, and beeswax on the frames. Now those chemicals are basically pesticides, fungicides, and including herbicides. Anything that's in the pollen and in the nectar, they've already found a lot of chemicals in the honey and pollen. So our bees are consuming that and it's not healthy for them. Number 3, aging queen, failing queen. She doesn't lay as much as she used to. And you may not get enough winter bees from her in her second winter. And the other one there is what I call stupid bees. Like if you get a queen that's up in the medium and she doesn't go down. Right now I have a shim, but during the summer I don't put a shim in there. I got sugar there. But the queen won't go down. She's stupid. And that restricts the amount of brood that she'll have. So I'm going to start using queen excluders. If I see queen up in there, I'm going to put her down below. Because I tried moving frames, medium frames of brood down, and that doesn't always work. The queen will just always wants to go up to the top. And that's what I call a stupid queen. And then you have stupid bees that want to put the nectar right in the center of the brood chambers, filling the cells where the queen's supposed to be laying, and that restricts the amount of brood you'll get. And then the other is weather. You know, if you have like a drought and they don't get enough nectar, or you get too much rain, they don't get out to gather the nectar or pollen. And then if its temperatures are too cold during the winter, you could actually lose some brood if the colony's not large enough, and that will really make them shrink fast if they start losing brood. And then the last here is the mistakes by beekeepers. I see a lot of beekeepers putting videos on where they want to put insulation board around the hives, completely around it, and they don't leave airflow. Like out here, if you haven't seen my other videos, I've got insulation board in between to keep the drafts from blowing through the cracks and stuff, but I always leave the front open unless it's bitterly cold, like -0, whatever, below 0. And then I used to put a comforter on the front of them, but I probably won't now. And I don't know what I'm going to do with these, if I'm going to put insulation around. It depends on the temperatures we have this winter. But there's insulation on the side, and there's insulation in the back, just to keep the drafts blowing in around the hive. And they're on the south side. This is the south side. And they get sunlight when the sun's shining. And I don't leave my bees out exposed to the wind as much as possible. Even these out here on the south side, they don't get a lot of wind. Here's an old book, The Hive and the Honeybee, and it talks about combining small colonies, and it talks about putting colonies out of the wind. Yeah, I've seen videos on YouTube, but people that want to put their bees out in the middle of nowhere with nothing around them to block the wind, and they say the bees can handle that. But I got to thinking that they're probably just selling honeybees to people, and they want other people to do that so the bees will die so they can sell them honeybees. So anyway, what I'm going to do now, this is basically an indoor hive inspection. Here's a small colony, and what I do, I take an LED flashlight and look down in there. And I can look two different places. I look down the inner cover, or I can open this up and look in there and see how small the colony is. Did the queen fail? Is there a queen in there? And I did do an oxalic acid treatment again, November 22nd. It was the 5th time I did it, twice in September, twice in October. That's the flaw with oxalic acid. Vaporizing, it doesn't kill Varroa mites in the cat brood. So you got to do it several times. And the whole time you're doing this, the bees are exposed to varrosis. So I've had a lot of colonies shrink. And I was wondering, is it from the varrosis? So I went ahead and I did another mite treatment 2 days ago. Today's the 24th. And you wait a couple days, and then I've scraped out the bottom boards before I did the oxalic acid. I put the vaporizer here, and here's a bottom screen, and I'll wait a couple days, and I'll take it, I'll clean it out again to see how many Varroa mites I get, and that will tell me if they have varrosis or not. Even after you get the Varroa mites out, the bees will seem to die. A couple winters ago, especially when I had foliage Russian bees, they even after I had all the Varroa mites out, the bees were dying because I could never find any Varroa mites, but the bees were still dying. They get the varrosis from the mites during the fall, and that continues to kill your bees afterwards. So let me open this up and I'll show you how I do this inside. This colony is in trouble. Compared to how large it was when I brought it home a few weeks ago to now, November 24th, this colony will not make it outside the next couple of weeks. It'll be gone. And this is what I do. I take a outer cover here and I set it next to it, and I set the medium with honey on top of that because you don't want to kill a bunch of bees. And then I take, because this is an enclosed room, you don't want to use your smoker in here. You wouldn't be able to breathe or see or anything else. So I take paper, and I've already done one. I did 41 just a few minutes ago. Take paper, get it burning, and then you let the smoke get down on the bees, and then you put it out, put the fire out, and then you lift up the deep. And here's the trick. You got to make sure the fire is out, and it's going to be smoldering for a while. While that's smoldering, you put it underneath. I can't do it now because I got my hand with holding the phone. But you put it underneath, and that smoke will go up through those frames, and that will calm them down. But first I determine how aggressive they are, and I put my hand there. Yeah, they're kind of aggressive. Sometimes you don't have to smoke them at all, and you give them a few minutes after you open it, and then you really decide whether you want to use smoke or not. So what I do is the bees go to the door. After I've found the queen, or if there's no queen in there, I'm going to distribute these bees a little at a time to each one of these colonies here that needs bees in the window, because some of these are small. I'm not having trouble with medium-sized colonies or large colonies. I'm having trouble with the small ones because as winter goes on, they will be losing bees, and before you know it, there's not even enough bees in there to restart the colony. So that's critical that you keep adding bees to them during the winter. And I don't know if it's from the varrosis, because you're not able to, during the summer when it's hot, you know, and the bees are breeding or bearding on the front of the hive, it's kind of hard to do a oxalic acid treatment, you know, because the bees aren't in the hive, and you got to wait for it to cool down so the bees all go in the hive, and by then it's September. I wish there was an easy answer for this, but there isn't, you know. You got to be able to get rid of those Varroa mites before they cause the varrosis to your bees. But Formic Pro, formic acid wasn't an answer for me. It killed 10% of my queens, and the last time I used it, it didn't work. So I just killed 10% of my queens. It didn't kill any Varroa mites. So after I've gone through the hive, and if there's a queen in there, I will put it back together, and I gather up the bees, in jars. I prefer jars because they don't walk up the side very easily. And then I cover it. When I get enough in there, I cover it. And then I have another jar, and I'll go around and I gather more, and I cover it, and then I flip it over, and you tap it gently, and they go down, and then you cover the bottom one. Then you go around and get more. Or here is a plastic container with a trap door on top. You could grab the bee by its wings with one hand, and then open it up with the other, and flip it down in there, flick it in there, and sometimes they come out, and you have to catch them twice. And then if I want to add bees to these colonies here, I take this out, and I put this entrance feeder in there, and I flip that jar over, and take out that index divider, and then I cover it with the dark rag so they'll go in. So that's basically how I do a hive inspection during the winter. I kind of get a crack at all these people that they're wrapping up their beekeeping for the year and they don't inspect the hives during the winter up north. Sometimes you have to, or else you're just going to end up losing a bunch of them. Okay, thank you.